Today's episode 94 on the deep dives, and we're going to be talking about two things. One, I'm going to kind of tease this one about Paul. Why do you want to go to Spain? Because he mentioned that in Romans, in the book of Romans. And we're going to tie it into all the nations that were mentioned in Acts 2. But other than that, Destri's talking about some weird band I've never heard of.
The Tedeschi Truck Band.
There you go. I got nothing on that. So episode 94.
Okay, so let me repronounce that. The Tedeschi, I think it's Tedeschi Trucks, Trucks band. More specifically, Derek Trucks, and it's spelled exactly the way you think it should be spelled, Trucks.
I was going to say TRUX.
No, that would be cool too, but no. And Trucks is, so this guy.
Well, what is Tedeschi, though?
Tedeschi is his wife.
Oh.
They presently, 15 years prior to today or this year, 15 years past, they got together and started the Tedeschi, which is her last name, Trucks Band.
Okay.
So I'll talk a little bit about Derek's history and how he got to where he is right now, who he is, his lineage, and how he got to where he is right now. Now, you all have never heard of him.
Nope.
Chris? Never heard of him.
I'm guessing she's Japanese, maybe?
She is not.
No?
She's a regular old white American.
Where's Tedeschi come from?
I don't know.
Oh.
Didn't study much about her. Maybe I'll do that next time.
Okay.
I didn't study much about her.
Because a guy named Derek Trucks and then someone named with the nice name Tedeschi.
I know. Yeah. It's true. Now, Derek Trucks, he comes from where you think he might come from, Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay.
Now, the reason most of my information comes from this book right here that I listened to / read called Derek Trucks, The Resonant Path. And it was let me say this about audiobooks first. It's one of my favorite ways of consuming literature because I can do it while I'm riding my bike. I can do it while I'm doing other stuff. I like to do it while I'm riding my bike because I've ridden bikes long enough to where I can do that without thinking. I can go around most terrain without thinking, probably better if I'm not thinking than if I am thinking too much. So I can listen and learn about things while I'm doing that. However, more and more these days, they're using automated voices to do audiobooks. I'm not a fan of that. However, the audio voices have gotten better. I'll say this, Chris. Chris shook his head no whenever he said he doesn't like that either. I'll say this, though. This one was so good that I kind of forgot after a while that I was listening to an automated voice until it comes to listing things, and the automated voice will, if something should be like number 1 and it's a hyphenated, they'll make it 1 and 2. They'll list both names or words as separate things. That's whenever I'm reminded, oh yeah, this is an automated voice.
So this is a pet peeve of mine right now.
Okay.
Like with the as popular as AI has become and everything, it is so infuriating now to see content that's made by AI or to listen to content that's made by AI. I am constantly like watching YouTube videos and stuff. Like, well, kind of like the same as audiobooks. While I'm working or whatever, a lot of times I'll have like a lecture on YouTube playing, or I'm really into listening to archaeology or history, or
like we all are.
Yeah, things like that.
Sitting around listening to archaeology.
And more and more, I'll click on something, and I'll get about a minute into it, and I'm like, this voice is just, well, it's not just the voice, because the voice sounds fake.
Yeah.
And it's not always something you can sense right at the beginning, but like you said, there's little idiosyncrasies that are natural in a human voice that aren't natural in an artificial voice. And you start to pick up on those.
Yeah.
And but not only that, but even the video itself is generated artificially.
I know.
It's either like a video that's created by artificial intelligence, or like people can feed a script into an AI model, and it will just pull like stock video,
stock video,
and so like it'll, as the script is being played through, it'll pull keywords from the script and pull a stock video about that word, but it has very little to do. It has very little inference about context or whatever. Like it'll mention, like a person with this last name that happens to be, also a different word in the dictionary, like George Bush, for example. And it won't pull a video of George Bush. It'll pull a video of a bush.
Yes.
Something like that.
Yep.
And I hate that so much because for several reasons. Because I want to listen to people. I don't want to listen to computer generated stuff.
Yeah.
Because it's not trustworthy. But also, like, there are people who put time and effort and like they pour themselves into content that now AI is just like generating it. I hate that. And so whenever I encounter a video that is either made by AI or sharpened by AI or narrated by AI or whatever, I go back and I right click on that channel. I say, never suggest this channel again.
That's a good.
And I hope we all do that.
That's a good way of doing it. That's a good way of doing it. I tend to just skip it. The first.
I skip it with prejudice.
That's good. I'll start doing that too, because I'm with you. I don't like it. I don't like it either. However, I think in the future we're going to have to. I mean, I think already presently we're going to have to pivot how we do things. Content creators are pivoting how they do things. Chris and I watched this video channel on YouTube. What's their names? Photo, two married guy and lady.
Chelsea and Tony Northrup.
Yeah, Northrups, Tony and Chelsea Northrup. To this day, still the best way to get information about photography. You agree?
I would agree. They're both wonderful.
They're professional photographers for years, even back in film days. They don't take any money from anybody except for companies that sell every type of camera. They sell used cameras, so they're not. They will go. I mean, they buy thousands of dollars worth of cameras. They'll switch from Canon to Sony to Nikon, depending on what's best.
Yeah.
So they'll tell us what the truth is. You agree, Chris? We love them. In Camera Club, that's the main way that we get content. But they have these conversations like we're having right now. Great conversations. I prefer Chelsea. She's just easier to look at.
Yeah,
I'll just
Chelsea's
say that.
A lot better looking than Tony.
Anyway,
I mean,
so they're a married couple and they have podcasts and everything. But they're having to pivot somehow because they're content creators. That's how they make some of their money. They actually wrote, even to this day, the most highest grossing book on photography.
as well as highest, it's the number one selling book period in photography.
That's crazy, right? I mean, that's all around the world. They wrote that book, and it's a book that you can get on software, and they continue to update it, the links and everything. It's great. We use it in Camera Club. It's wonderful. But they're having to pivot somehow with AI. And I'm going to be following them to find out with photography how where are we going to land?
Right.
Are our cameras going to have? They already have AI. Even not expensive cameras, they have type of AI, but where exactly is that going to land on the higher end?
Yeah.
But I always watch them. They're real. They use AI. My point is they're having to pivot. They're not saying we're not going to do AI. We refuse to do AI. They realize that this is a real thing. How are we going to use it? to stay authentic and to continue to make content.
Yeah, and that's a perfect reaction to the emergence of AI. Is a tool. How we're going to use it. I don't like when people see it as, oh, this can just replace people.
Absolutely,
because
100% agree.
Because it can't.
Yes, that's right.
There's too
How
many
can people
things.
use it?
Yeah, there's too many things about a conscious human being that AI cannot replicate.
Right.
And sometimes it's so subtle that you don't know it until it's not there. And I think the AI narration and video content and stuff is a perfect example of that, because when you're listening to a book on tape that was narrated by an actual person, in your mind you're not thinking this is an actual person I'm listening to. It's just a natural thing that fits into our ears the way human language does. But the minute it becomes a mechanical voice, it might be 99.9% human sounding, but at least with me, something in my subconscious trips when it's an AI voice. And I'm like, something is not natural about that. And then that becomes all I can focus on.
Gotcha.
Is like, I'm no longer listening to what it's saying. I'm listening to how it's saying it. Saying it.
I got
I
you.
pick that up a lot when I'm watching a video, and they'll go, instead of saying 1903, they'll go 1903.
1903, and it all of a sudden
And then-
sounds mechanical, right?
Yeah.
It sounds mechanical.
And it's lazy too, because nobody is going back. Whoever's creating, or
Yeah, they're not going
person
back and
behind,
correcting it.
They're not going back and proof. So it just tells me all they're doing is hitting a button, letting a computer generate it, hitting another button, letting a computer do it, and there's no vetting of the information or how the information is disseminated.
Which can tell you that some of the information can very well be incorrect.
Right.
Right, if it's not
Exactly.
being vetted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
No, that's
interject.
okay.
there.
I do want to say
I got on a pet peeve about AI.
I do want to say one other thing about AI, a positive thing about it. So Don and I went to have lunch yesterday, and uncharacteristic of her, I brought back from the salad bar some chocolate mousse. You know, some salad bars have chocolate mousse, had chocolate chips in it. And I brought it back, started eating, ate a little bit, and I went to the restroom and came back. And I had it on a little plate, and there was, I don't know, a small piece left. I had it on a little plate. I came back, and there was a bunch more there. I said, what in the world happened to I don't know. Don says, I don't know how it got there. It just kind of got there. So she went and got more, brought it back. And something about it, she's not a real sweet eater. And this mousse was not very sweet. That's why she liked it.
Yeah.
So she kept eating it. And she says, I'm not feeling very good. I said, I know. You ate
Sugar
a
rush.
pound of chocolate mousse. But she said, no, something's in it. And she was right. Eggs were in it. And she's allergic to eggs. So she started, she went to ChatGPT, and she started to talk to ChatGPT like it was Google.
Right.
Very specific, what is the main ingredient? And I said, Donna, and I just realized whenever I was saying this, I didn't really know that I knew this. I said, Donna, you don't have to talk to it like that. Just say, what's in chocolate mousse? And it will tell you. You know what I mean? So I like that, being able just to have natural conversation with AI and at least get some feedback instead of having to do it the Google way, you know.
Right.
What is exactly in, what can make somebody sick in chocolate mousse would be the Google way. Hey, what's in chocolate mousse? Is the ChatGPT way?
Right. Yeah.
Now, what happens if you get what's in chocolate mousse and it actually shows you a actual mousse that's made out of chocolate?
Yeah,
then
that could happen.
You got that problem.
Well, that's the AI YouTube videos. Today we're going to be talking about a recipe about chocolate mousse, and it shows a video of a mousse.
Yeah.
You know?
Now, we might not get to Derek Trucks today, but because I'm going to tell you this too, this book, I went out and rode for about an hour and a half the other day, and listen, if you've ever listened to an audiobook, you can listen to many chapters in an hour and a half, because it's the cadence is total. You know, you can listen to 20 chapters. I listened to the majority of this book in 2 days, going out on bike rides, and whenever you do it that way, you pick up on the things being repeated.
Yeah.
And in this book, it started getting on my nerves the words that are repeated, that are uncommon words. I swear I can't think of it. What the word was now, but it was a nice word. But the theos of the band. What is? I didn't even know what
Ethos?
Ethos.
Ethos.
The ethos.
Yeah.
That word is used 30 times in this book, and I don't know I've ever seen that word written down 30 times ever before.
Right.
But they stepped talking about ethos, and they kept not just repeating the same words, but the same content. After reading this book, you'd think Derek Trucks was the second coming, man, because it was all, man, he is so this and so that, and so it would probably make him uncomfortable. It was so glaring, you know what I mean? So just glorious about him. It made you a little uncomfortable to read it. So to me, that's not you know what I mean? That's not reality. And they kept using the same words to describe the way he played guitar. And again, they were good, SAT words, but they weren't words that normal people use, but they used it so many times. So I'm wondering if this whole book wasn't AI generated of some sort.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, books nowadays are.
Could be. However,
Write a book about this. Narrate this book.
Yeah.
Publish it.
there you go.
In 5 minutes, you have a new book.
There you go. It could happen. So I wanted to say that's where I got most of this, because I didn't know much about Derek Trucks in the Tedeschi Trucks band either. My buddy Kent introduced me to them about 4 years ago. And I said, yeah, okay, I'll check them out. And I never really did. I listened to them. But for some reason, I wanted to check them out again. I don't know what got me on them, but I started doing a little bit more research on them, and I went, man, this is good stuff. And the reason it's good stuff is because it sounds old, but it's new.
Yeah.
So these guys continue to produce music that is jazzy, funk, southern rock, and glaring guitar solos. Derek Trucks is one of the best guitarists in the world, according to Guitar Magazine, according to his peers. Eric Clapton, you've heard of Eric Clapton? Eric Clapton invited him to go on tour with him whenever he was less than 20 years old. He was like 16, 17 years old. If Eric Clapton asked you to come on tour with him, and during this tour, I can't remember what the name of the tour was, but it was all the big guitarists of the day. They asked this dude to come up there, and he plays the slide guitar. Now, I said he's one of the best guitarists in the world, according to his peers. He's probably the best slide guitar player that ever lived. Do you know what the difference is? Slide guitar and regular guitar?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's where you're not on frets. You have a continuous bar on your finger.
So our viewers and listeners who may not know, the guitarist literally puts a piece of glass or whatever they're using. It used to be that they'd find whatever they could. Now,
like a beer bottle neck or something.
You're right. And now manufacturers are making them specific, proprietary for this. Puts it on his fingers and he goes, he doesn't use the frets. And there's a slight difference in the sound until you can pick up on the sound, and then it's obvious. He plays this thing so well that it makes Eric Clapton, and B.B. King, by the way. You've heard of B.B. King?
Oh, yeah.
Makes Eric Clapton and B.B. King go, man, look at that guy play the guitar. That's saying a lot, Chris. These are two of the best guitarists of all time. Looking at this guy ripping this guitar, and it's just crazy. Now, it's in his lineage. I said that because his uncle was Greg Allman.
Oh, of the Allman Brothers.
Of the Allman Brothers.
Yeah.
He never met Greg Allman. Greg Allman died 7 years before Derek Trucks was born. But his mother was Greg's sister. So what happened was he grew up in a home in Jacksonville. I spent a lot of time in Jacksonville, Florida, guys, a lot of time. I dated a girl there, and my best friend Steve was there. And I would spend weekends there. Every chance I got, I would go. For about 10 years, I spent a lot. I lived in Wilmington, and I drove to Jacksonville a lot. During that time, during the 90s, this kid was playing in Jacksonville, and it was a hotbed for Southern rock and roll. So 38 Special, right? Leonard Skinner, and a couple more came out of Jacksonville, Florida, and so Derek Trucks had a great opportunity to play with a lot of people that were developing Southern rock and roll at the time, right? So he was part of this ethos. No, I'm kidding. He was part of
A milieu, if you will.
a milieu. He was part of this generation that everywhere around him were great guitarists and great musicians. He had a lot of opportunity to play with people that were as good, better, but he could play anywhere, almost seven nights a week. So the reason they called him a prodigy. The reason that he was able to become so good is because he had a father who supported what he did. They treated it. This was not anything said in the book or any other research I did. This is just my takeaway. They treated his desire to play the guitar as a parent would if they wanted to play football or soccer, or especially baseball. Whenever you can do travel ball and all that stuff, they allowed him and they escorted him to all these bars and things where he could play, but they kept him safe away from all the other stuff except for the secondhand smoke and all that junk. But from what I could tell, he never had a problem with drinking or smoking or drugs or anything like that. He wanted to play guitar, and he would play every second that he could. He was still required to do his homework, to go to school. There was no excuses that he couldn't say, I'm too tired. I got in 3 o'clock in the morning last night, and Monday I don't want to go to school. No, you're going to school. Part of playing the guitar is going to school the next day. And his teachers knew it too, So from what I could tell, the teachers were treating him not anything special, but they understood, like if he fell asleep or something in the back, hey, Derek, man, you got to wake up. I know you're tired. No, they're not going to send him to the principal because he's back there loafing. You know what I mean? So, again, that's just me reading between the lines. But they fostered, his support groups fostered him doing this. Think about it, Chris. If you got a nephew of Greg Allman and he wants to play the guitar and he's already really better than most people in Jacksonville, you don't want to foster that, that desire and that talent.
Yeah.
Well, that helped him become who he was. At age 15, he already had his own band, and he had already played with all these big names in the industry. Also ends up that the Allman Brothers got back together, and they invited him to come play. So for 15 years, he played. He was a main player in the Allman Brothers band.
Oh, that's cool.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
At the same time, he started his own band, the Derek Trucks Band. So he was doing the Derek Trucks Band, and he was doing the Allman Brothers Band. And it was interesting the way this book described it. It's kind of like photography with me. On Sundays, I do photography for the church. It's not my type of photography, but I do it to get paid. I try to think where these pictures are going to be and what is going to make people say when they see these pictures, I want to attend that church. That's not my natural way. Meaning, like, I'm not supposed to take a picture of somebody if the seats are empty in the back. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that, but that's what I do.
Right.
That's what I have to do. So I've learned to do, I can blur the background.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's marketing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I can blur the background. And if it's a great picture of somebody praising or somebody embracing something like that, but there's empty seats in the background, I'm still going to take that picture. And if it gets through good, if not, then I can try to blur the background or just do it in camera, whatever.
I remember years ago when I was in undergrad engineering school, engineering programs, there's not usually a lot of girls in there. There's usually a couple. And the engineering program I was in, there were no girls in my class, but there were a couple classes down. And every time they took a picture of the engineering program, they always brought these like 2 or 3 girls in.
That's right.
Like,
See, you could do it too, girls.
yeah, and
right?
it became kind of a running joke. Is like, if we're going to be marketing the engineering program, we got to get these 3 girls in here. They were everywhere. It doesn't matter what class it was, what if it was
funny.
the seniors, if it was the freshmen. These 3 girls were in those pictures.
It's the same difference,
Yep.
right? It's the same difference. It's just it's a reality
Yeah.
of marketing. So I've learned to do that. I don't always pull it off every Sunday, but anyway, my point was, I do that for money. Derek Trucks did the Allman Brothers, not for the money, but he had to have parameters in the Allman Brothers. Allman Brothers band is already created, right? All the songs are already created. They probably did some new ones, but he was a part of this Allman Brothers band.
Yeah.
And he had to be real careful about how he played. He didn't want to create something that wasn't already there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. He had to match their brand, like you said.
Yeah, he had to match their brand. That's good, Josh. He had to match their brand. At the same time, whenever he was with the Derek Trucks band, he could do whatever he wanted to do. So he had both. Same way with photography for me. I get paid to do the Sunday and the Wednesday, but I go to UWF to the boardwalk to look for snakes, lizards, and frogs and birds and everything else, and squirrels and turtles and fish, because that's what I like to do, right? I'm not just saying that out of the blue. Chris and I did that last weekend. We went to the boardwalk and we did all this stuff, and
it's like any job, in my engineering business. When I'm designing someone else's house, I design in my opinion, I designed some of the stupidest stuff that other people really want, But here I'm doing that because that's my career of choice. That's what I do to make money. So I'm not designing my stuff. I'm designing something that they'll be happy with and that they want to call home.
You're still doing engineering.
Yeah, I'm still doing engineering, but when it comes to designing my stuff, totally different.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you get joy out of doing the stuff that you want to do.
Well, I get joy out of both of them either way.
Because you like engineering so much.
Yeah, it's different, because I think this is dumb.
Yes.
But it's still,
Is that what you say in the greeting whenever you read? I think this is dumb, but I'll do it for you.
Well, there's ways you can say it. If this is what you like,
If you don't mind, I'm going home.
You're paying me to do your dumbness.
Yeah. How does this? I mean, there are some times I'm like, no, this is crazy. This one guy, he knows me as Josh Heck No Huber.
Heck no.
He came to me with some crazy idea, and I was like, heck no.
That's funny.
But yeah. Anyway, I know what you're talking
the
about.
dinosaur guy you talked about that time?
No, but he's one of them. Yeah.
Well, that's funny. I think it's probably not uncommon for a lot of creative outlets or a lot of jobs. Perhaps I'm sure with electrical engineering, you probably have the same thing. You could create something.
Yeah, trust me, and my sanity is never going to be restored from something you want. What, where, and
right.
No,
Gotcha. Well, that's kind of the same thing with him. Whenever he was with Greg Allman, he liked it. He loved it. Derek Trucks loved being the Allman Brothers. I thinking about it from his point of view. Man, what an honor, to not take the place, but play guitar with a band that your uncle that I've never met played with and was such an icon. Greg Allman.
Oh, yeah.
What an icon, man, And so Derek Trucks got on there and played for 15 years with them. And then after that 15 years is up, he stopped his Derek Trucks band, and he married Miss Tedeschi. I can't remember her first name. he met Tedeschi. She is very much like a Bonnie Raitt. Yeah, like a Bonnie Raitt. She has a raspy voice. She plays guitar also. She's very smart. She comes from a gospel, jazz background, and they melted together on stage and off stage. So they married, had kids. And now, even today, they are touring as the Tedeschi Trucks Band.
Tedeschi, I'm trying to look her up.
It's such a great story. I want to do Tedeschi.
Susan Tedeschi.
Susan Tedeschi. 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 It's Tedeschi. I've heard it all pronounced Tedeschi, not Tedeschi. Tedeschi Trucks Band. But if you go on YouTube, they're all over YouTube. Mm-hmm. It's fun to watch them play. It's great to listen to them play. Derek's, we're tight, so I'll call him Derek. Derek's
D-Dog.
D-Dog, the OD. His leadership style evolved to the point where it was very democratic. In that, whenever they have a chance to create something, he gets everybody's point of view in the band. He wants everybody in the band to have ownership of what they're doing, so everybody will be tied into it, right?
Right.
Into it. And listening to their music tells that story, because I haven't listened to, I mean, these guys are very prolific. I haven't listened to a bunch. All week I've been listening to them. You'll have one jazzy, one poppy, and one rock and daggone roll, right back to back to back. And that just tells me that, well, who knows who had the most influence on what's going on here, but just the I'm not going to say ethos, just the cohesiveness of the band tells in their music. Mm-hmm. What? You got this look on your face like you want to say.
Cohesivity. Coefficient of cohesion.
It's a pleasure. It's been a pleasure listening to them. They are what I would call a jam band. They don't like to use that term because it pigeonholes them, but very much Grateful Dead-like, right? Very, very much Fish-like if you haven't listened to them. This is what I mean by a jam band. In concert, they sound just as good, if not better, than in the studio, because it just flows. The music just flows. And I've talked about the Grateful Dead on here, haven't I?
A little bit.
Have you? Yeah,
just a smidgen.
One or two times.
It's like the Grateful Dead. Whenever they're going, they might have a set list that that's a suggestion, but in between songs, somebody might be doing something. They don't stop necessarily. They're just just playing around, just jamming, and then somebody will start something. Then everybody else will follow into a total different song than was planned.
Right.
So they just jam. It could be 3 minutes. It could be 10 minutes. It could be 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. That's just part of what the band is about, and they're influenced by that quite a bit. Nothing like the Grateful Dead in that manner, but very much like that.
And when you're going back and saying he made the band invested, that goes back to the last two episodes. If they all moving forward as one, they're going to be better performers.
Yeah, that's a good point, Chris. That's a very good point.
Here's one thing that struck me, something you said as well, is like when he was a kid, his parents, he came from a good, solid home. His parents were really supportive of what he did, all that stuff. One of the characteristics of society right now is the breakdown of the family, and I wonder, like as advanced as we are nowadays, it seems like we've gotten dumber as a result, and like the net capabilities of each generation seems to be decreasing, even though technologically we're increasing. I wonder, had the breakdown of the family had not occurred to the extent that it has, where would we be as a society if all of us came from good, solid families who were supportive of each other and were interested in the next generation, all that stuff? I would wager that the world would look entirely different than it does today. You know what?
That's a great observation. My first thought is we'd all be the best that we could be at what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
If we all were encouraged by the people that support us and that we respect the most, there's no stopping you for that. I really believe that. There's no, and I mean, we talk about mental health. We can talk about people being, influenced by evil spirits and things. That's valid. We can talk about that. But having somebody that you respect and love look at you and tell you that you can do anything you want to do, and we're going to support you doing that, man, that's, chances are of success are so much better than if you're called dumb or stupid whenever you're a kid.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a much better place. We're not there. You know what I mean? But that's thank God for Derek's family that allowed him to do what.
And those of us who did come from a supporting family, realizing how much of a blessing that is.
Right. Absolutely.
And
also,
how rare.
Right. And I also say, if it was, Derek Truck's coming from an environment where music was looked at like a sport, in that it's a realistic way of making a living, or a realistic way, a valid way of spending your time, instead of coming from a place where that would be foreign. That's got to have helped also. I mean, this is a sister of Greg Allman.
Yeah.
She knows for sure you can do well. You know what I mean? And he's got the pedigree. He's got the support. He's in a place, everything. I'm sure he had hard times, but this book didn't talk about any of that. So I don't know any of his hard times. But he came from a place, a family, and he had the history, and he had the talent. This kid played all the time. I talked about guitarists on here. Many of the guitarists that I know will play in their basement just as if they're playing in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
Because they just play. They just want to play. Kent wanted to play his guitar. He would play his guitar all day long if he could. You know what I mean? If it was up to him, he'd be playing guitar all day and singing and creating music, creating things, playing. That gets in you, and it's a way of, I don't know. It's a way of creating something that gives back to your soul, I think.
Right.
I think sometimes the creativity nowadays, unless it fits a certain parameter, I think creativity is kind of quashed in a lot of our society. I really feel that.
I had to overcome that thought whenever I started getting paid to do photography at church, because I kind of started thinking, this isn't what I'm industry. It's only a couple hours a week.
Right.
You know what I mean? Do that and then do your other. There's nothing wrong with doing that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with doing engineering for somebody who wants a square house with nothing on it.
Well, that's my house.
Oh, that's your house. Okay.
That's my ideal house. Low maintenance, can survive anything. Right. Cheap to build, super strong.
No windows.
Big sign that
Concrete.
says "Stay out."
That's my house.
That's your house, right? Well, I'll end with this and just say that I would really hope that people will listen to Tedeschi Truck's band, give them a chance. They're still touring and still making music. They got to a point where, again, kind of like Queen, but even more, they got to the point where they are doing everything themselves now. So they have total control. There's no producers. They produce. They have their own studio in Jacksonville. They do everything. They have total control over their music. Think about that. That's you have total control as much as you can, I guess, over engineering.
Yeah.
So they're doing. Think about them being in the studio. They have every bit of control over every tone, everything. They're not doing anything for anybody else except for them. That's one of the reasons I think that people like most of us haven't heard about them, because they're not being marketed.
Yeah.
They're marketed by going on tour. And I'll say this, they sell out everywhere they go. But you don't see them on TV. You see them on YouTube because they have created the YouTube video.
They have like a cult following.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In a good way.
So what's your favorite song by them right now, and why is it your favorite?
I haven't figured it out yet.
Or what's one that you really like?
I just heard Little Wing on the way in. That was really good. What they also do is they do a lot of covers in honor of people. Like they'll do 6 or 7 Jimi Hendrix songs in honor of Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
They do a whole album of Joe Cocker stuff in honor of him.
Well, why is that one song good to you?
I've always loved that song "Little Wing" by Jimi Hendrix.
Okay.
Because it's glaring, wild guitar, and then it stops, and you just hear Jimi Hendrix start singing in a poetic way. So it's very dynamic. 1 second, he's just wailing up and down the guitar. And I don't mean fast.
Right.
And that's another thing about the Trucks band. He was always known to use every bit of the neck of the guitar, but it's not speedy. It's not as fast. It's not a competition of being
Right.
It's just making
It's creative. Yeah.
What? That was exactly the way it sounds, Chris. That was a perfect rendition of that.
You know, my love of bluegrass music, that's kind of how I feel about a lot of bluegrass people, especially banjo, because like it seems like there's this thought among a lot of banjo players is to show how good I am, I have to show how fast I am.
Yeah, right.
And it's not that great. Probably my favorite banjo player at the moment is, oddly enough, who's the actor? Steve Martin. Yeah, Steve Martin and Clinch Mountain Boys. Steve Martin is a really good banjo player because he's not trying to do fast. He's trying to do good and well thought out. And it's really, and I love like the claw hammer style of banjo, which is different than the, pick as fast as you can with the little, finger things. It's just a nice rhythmic, whatever. And it fits real well with, just good, peaceful songs.
Well, that's the way I think you'd like Derek Truxton. That's the way he did
I'm going to look him up.
Yeah, that's the way he did it. He can be fast, but that's not what it was about. It was about making it sing.
Yeah.
And his wife's voice.
He's a servant to the music.
Man, it's so good, too.
Yeah.
It's so good. Once you've heard him, you can pick them out from a bunch. So, watching them, he looks like he's, he grew up in the 90s. You know what I mean? He's got long blonde hair pulled back like this. He never makes he plays his guitar. He never makes a wince or anything. He just looks down and plays, and his wife sings, and there's I'm going to close sometime about this band. The more we talk about it, more I love them. So I like horns in bands. Check, they've got horns. I like woodwind. Flute, check, they've got a flute. I like gospel background. Joe Cocker did that with like 2 or 3 ladies, and they had just wonderful gospel background vocals. Check, they've got that. 2 drummers, check. The more I did the research, the more I looked at who they've got. This on paper
was made for me.
This is my favorite band.
Right.
This is my favorite band on paper, and I just adore them. We were talking about having a pivot with the market earlier. They did something very unique back, I don't know how many years ago. The economy wasn't that good, so it was bands, even big bands, were really laying people off. So they'd go, if they had 10 people, they'd go out with 5. They had 2 drummers, they'd go out with 1. They'd get rid of the horns, get rid of the non-essential people, like the state says they're doing. At that time, that's whenever Trucks and Tedeschi started touring together. They did the exact opposite. They expanded and went on tour, and it worked for them. For whatever reason, it worked for them. They did the exact opposite. They leaned into it, did what they wanted to do because they made that decision, and it worked for them. I think because their overall goal was different than other people.
Yeah.
If we make $1 million, that would be awesome. But what we're going to do is we're going to tour with our 2 kids together with this band, and we're going to make music, and we're going to sell out wherever we can sell out.
Yeah.
We're going to sell out 10,000 seats instead of trying to sell out 100,000 seats. And we're going to tour the country and the world by doing that. And I respect that, man. doing what you want to do and
Right.
making it happen. So anyway, that's all I know about him.
Okay. That sounds cool. Well, I want to talk today about like two bookends in Scripture. And I'll start with this kind of a question. We've all been here, but can you remember a time in your life where there's a point where you started getting away from God, and then a point where you came back from that and got closer to God? We've all kind of experienced that, but in terms of just humanity at large, there's this interesting like story arc or character arc in Scripture that talks about like just how important and how pivotal to human history the gospel was and is. Back in Genesis, I think Genesis 9, we're coming right off of the flood. Genesis 10, we have the descendants of Noah talked about. And a lot of people refer to Genesis 10 as the table of nations. It says, Noah had 3 sons, and it goes through his 3 sons, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and starts mentioning these are the sons of Ham, and these are their sons, and so on, and goes through Shem and Japheth. And what it's doing is it's setting this sort of like decoding chapter for the rest of Scripture. It's saying all of the nations of the world that we see, they came from this lineage. And you start to see them spread out to an extent. Because when, one of the things that God told Adam and Eve was to, be fruitful, multiply, populate the earth. He talked to Noah. He says, be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, all this stuff. And they did that to an extent, but the very next chapter, it shows where they stopped, and they refused to spread out. They sort of coalesced around this idea of Babel and building this Tower of Babel. And we've all probably, heard this account of human history where the where God interrupted that because there was this this mentality in humanity that we're going to rebel against what God said. He had sent a flood at one time in order to prevent us from succumbing to that same type of destiny or whatever. We're going to build this tower. And Josephus actually gives us a little bit more information about it. They said he said that they were trying to make it waterproof. They were trying to make it something that was tall so that if floodwaters came again, they could run to this tower and they could find refuge there and basically defy the judgment of God if it were to come again. And so God intervened, and that's where we see in Scripture that he changed the languages or confused the languages of everybody, and everybody started to split out around the world according to those languages. So we see this massive rebellion at Babel that caused the nations to spread out. And throughout the rest of Scripture, we see that among those nations, there's one nation specifically that God focuses on, because right after the narrative of Babel, the next major event is God calling Abraham out of these nations, out of Ur, the Chaldees, and he creates from Abraham a nation that's his focus. Like it's his inheritance. He refers to it as in some cases, and that's the mechanism through which he's going to bring the Messiah, which is going to be the answer to all of this rebellion. It's going to give us a mechanism for atoning for the sin and the rebellion that we're all subject to as human beings. So the rest of the Old Testament is that plan played out. God's plan of salvation coming from the nation of Israel. So it follows the nation of Israel, God miraculously preserving it, keeping it in check, disciplining it when necessary, and all this stuff. And we get to the New Testament, and from that nation of Israel comes Jesus, the Messiah, God in the flesh. God himself comes in the flesh, is born as a human being from the nation of Israel, specifically from the tribe of Judah. And he ends up, because he's God in the flesh, he doesn't have that same taint from sin. And he's able to take our punishment for our sin for us. I mean, that's the nature of the gospel is Christ had no sin. He didn't have to pay for any sin, so he took the punishment for our sin in our place, and then rose again, and so on and so forth. And those are the Gospels. Well, right after the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the book of Acts, which Acts is a continuation of the book of Luke. Same author. Luke wrote Luke, Luke wrote Acts. And it's the Acts of the Apostles. And Acts 2 is extremely important. It's the account of the day of Pentecost, but it's extremely important when you keep Genesis 10 in the back of your mind, Genesis 10 and Genesis 11, because remember, Genesis 10 and 11 are how the nations were formed, how the nations rebelled against God, and how the nations were dispersed from Babel. Well, in Acts chapter 2, we have the apostles and a lot of people brought together in Jerusalem. And that's another thing. The Bible is kind of this narrative of the competition between Babylon and Jerusalem. Those two cities come up time and time again as sort of mirror images of each other, but like the yin and yang of Scripture, Babel and Jerusalem. And so we have the apostles and a lot of people brought together in Jerusalem. In Acts 2, verse 8 says, we hear every man in... Well, let me back up one or two more verses. 5, verse 5, there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men, out of every nation under heaven. Now when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own language. So here's the apostles. This is the day of Pentecost. The apostles, they're proclaiming the gospel message, but there's people in Jerusalem that are from every area of the world that speak all of these different languages. And as the apostles start to speak, it says in verse 4, they were all filled with the Holy Ghost and began to speak with other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men, out of every nation under heaven. Now when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own language. So think about Babel. The languages were confused, and nobody speaks the same language as each other anymore. And everyone spreads out across the world. And then in Acts 2, from all over the known world at the time, people come together in Jerusalem. And even though they speak all different languages, they're hearing the gospel proclaimed in their own language. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a reversal of Babel, right? And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? And how hear we every man in our own tongue wherein we were born? And then it goes through this list in verse 9. Parthians, Medes, Elamites, and the dwellers in Mesopotamia and in Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, parts of Libya, about Cyrene, strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes, Cretes, Arabians. We do hear them speak in our tongues the wonderful works of God. Now, there's more nations listed overall in the book of Acts. But if you were to take Genesis 10, list all those nations, and you take Acts 2 and list all those nations, they're the same nations. Some of them might have different names because names change over time, but they're the same regions that are being listed there. Acts 2 is reversal of Genesis 11, the Babel. Rebellion caused confusion, coming back to God brought the reversal of that confusion. The same thing. And I think that's so interesting how we have these two bookends in Scripture. But Paul is super cool for something he said as well, because when you take Genesis 10 and Acts 2 and you map those out, there's kind of a limit to how far west it goes and how far east it goes. It goes all the way to deep into Europe, a little bit past Rome and in modern day Italy, all that stuff. But there's kind of a line drawn on the west side of Italy to where this goes. And Paul, he makes an interesting statement in Romans, because he's talking to the Romans, and he mentions his ultimate goal is to go to Spain. This is Romans chapter 12, I believe, that he says this. I want to go to Spain. And if we don't have Genesis 10 and Acts 2 in mind, that doesn't really make sense. That really doesn't carry any significance with it. But what Paul was doing is he was piercing through or punching through the boundary that was shown in Genesis 10 and Acts 2. And he's saying, I want to go beyond that boundary to the rest of the world and start conquering it in the name of Christ. And I think that's interesting. Now, Acts in the New Testament, they don't tell us if Paul ever made it to Spain, but church history, there's a lot of early church fathers and early historians that wrote about Paul, and a lot of them say that he did actually make it to Spain and preach to the Spaniards before he was imprisoned and eventually killed by Nero. So I think that's interesting how you have Babel and the rebellion against God, and then you have Jerusalem and coming back to God being a reversal of Babel, and then Paul there saying, I want to punch through the boundary and get to the rest of the world. It goes along with what Jesus said about how the gospel will start in Jerusalem and in Judea, which was the old kingdom of Judah, to Samaria, which was the northern kingdom of Israel. So we're going to start in Jerusalem, we're going to reunite Israel, and then we're going to go to the uttermost parts of the earth. Like the entire globe is the goal. And I think it's cool to see that strategy played out.
Is Babel? You've heard people say you're just talking Babel like baby Babel. Mm-hmm. Just talking nonsense. You think is that where it came from? Probably came from. Okay, I'm just wondering.
Yep. If you're babbling.
You're babbling. That's right. That's right. Okay, I got it. Thank you, Josh.
Yeah.
I have an unrelated question from one of our listeners.
Okay.
Okay. Why has this person noticed in the just recently that a lot of the heavy equipment in construction sites, so earth-moving heavy construction equipment manufacturers, many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is listed here, are from Japan. Mm-hmm. And there's very few others. Caterpillar's from U.S., Volvo, Sweden. But whenever that was brought to my attention, I started paying attention to it. And there are a lot of, seems like new or just, I don't know if they're new or just realizing it.
Not necessarily from Japan. My brother, who lives in Georgia, he has a farm. Mm-hmm. And basically he has a Ford tractor. Mm-hmm. Well, it's not a Ford. It's a Yanmar. Mm-hmm. But Yanmar makes the Ford tractor. Mm-hmm. So basically coming down the line, this one's blue. Yanmar. The next one's Yanmar, which is, and then these are small to medium farm tractors. Mm-hmm. And so they're being produced over there because they can be produced cheaper. Now, some of the huge earth-moving equipment is still going to be Caterpillar and some of those guys. Mm-hmm. But your average small, like Daihatsu and all that kind of stuff, it's just because it's far less expensive for them to make it in China, Korea, and Japan than it is over here. Now, tariffs are probably changing all of that. Mm-hmm. Okay. But that's why you're seeing it.
Okay.
Well, it's one of the goal of tariffs to sort of force manufacturing back over here into America. Yeah. But there's a huge challenge with that because over the past several decades, our ability to manufacture here in America has been significantly depleted. And it's not just like we don't have manufacturing plants, we don't have the talent. Because tooling, for example, is a huge issue. Like we don't have a lot of people in America that have the kind of expertise to create the machines that create things.
Okay.
And however, in other countries like China and Japan, well, China especially, Japan, they've been concentrating on that. So to get like an injection mold made, you'll be hard pressed to find probably more than 4 or 5 companies here in America that can even make injection molds anymore. The CAD model is always sent overseas. They make it, machine it, ship it back, and we stick it in our mold machines.
Okay.
And so finding something that is like, you'll see made in the USA on something, that doesn't mean the pieces came from USA. It means that it was probably assembled in USA. But manufacturing at large, it's pretty much impossible to get something that from raw materials to finished product all came from the United States, just because over the past several decades, we've been outsourcing all of that to other countries who aren't as scrupulous in their ethics of manufacturing as we are. We have, we have to take care of the workers. And this isn't a bad thing. I'm saying like we're not playing on an even playing field because we have, we have medical insurance that companies do, and 401ks, and safe conditions, and there's time limits on how long people can work, and minimum wages, and all this stuff. A lot of those rules don't exist in other countries, and so we'll ship it off there, kind of close our eyes to the unethical things that are going on in those work environments, and we'll open up a package the next day that has 500,000 of these little widgets made, and we'll incorporate them in our stuff because it's cheap. And it's destroyed our ability to be self-sufficient on a manufacturing level in America. But it goes back to the brand of earth movers, brand of vehicles, brand of all kinds of stuff.
Gotcha.
That was our greatest plus in World War II. I mean, we out-manufactured the enemy, plain and simple. When the Germans actually came over here as POWs, they were like, oh, my God. And they realized that one plant here in America made more planes than the entire Nazi Germany did during all.
Well, yeah, because at a drop of a hat, we went into all the factories and retooled them. Like, okay, you're making toilet paper today, you're making propellers tomorrow. Gotcha. And everything was retooled because we had that skill. We don't have that skill now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. This is kind of off topic a little bit, but whenever we as Americans living in America, we tend to say over in Japan or China, we put those two together many times. If you did that in China,
you'd be.
Or if you did that in Japan,
especially in Japan,
putting those,
right.
especially in Japan, if you put those two together, those are fighting words.
Oh, absolutely.
So
we're not talking about political ideologies. We're talking about like manufacturing prowess.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, in your view, are things better or worse if they're made from China or made from Japan? Or you can't really say something's made in China or made in Japan, right? Because of everything you just got through saying. Right?
So one of the issues with China, though, is they don't have protections on intellectual property like we do. And so if we develop something here, like if I as a company develop a product, that intellectual property is protected by law. If I send my CAD files over to China to get injection molds made or whatever, they don't have those same protections. And so they'll steal that CAD model, they'll tweak it or whatever, and they'll make a cheaper, less expensive version on it.
Okay.
And they'll sell it in the same Amazon marketplace that I sell mine. Only theirs will be, a percentage of the cost that mine is, because they can just steal intellectual property whenever they want. And I can't really do anything about that because the problem is so huge. Okay. And so that's why oftentimes you'll see there's like the original product, and then there's a ton of like Chinese knockoffs of it because who's to stop them if their goal is just to make a bunch of money, and my goal as a consumer is just to buy the cheapest version of this I can. There's no way I'm going to buy this more expensive, made entirely in the USA thing.
Most people won't.
Yeah, because I don't really have an understanding of the insidious stuff that's going on in the background behind that. And so I'll just, I go down the list and I hit the cheapest one.
Yeah.
Get it sent to me in 2 days, prime shipping, and I'm good to go. And so meanwhile, the people that spend all the time, they have to jack their price up to recoup their R&D costs and their manufacturing costs and all that stuff. But if, one original product spawns 10 knockoffs, all those knockoffs are going to get all the money, and this guy's going to go out of business.
Well, that's a hard place to compete.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And that's one of the reasons that tariffs are there, is to sort of artificially force people to, buy American manufacturing. The problem is anytime the federal government forces something related to economics, it messes it up. And we're dealing with this right now. Just before the episode today, Chris and I were talking about, the cameras that we use. When we bought them, it was before the tariffs. And now Chris, he wants to buy the same camera. It's several $100s more expensive for the same exact camera. No improvements. It's just, there's a tariff now.
Right.
And so now people aren't buying as many cameras.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. All right. Chris, anything else?
I'm good.
All right. All right. Josh, anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay. Donna wants you to do something on, what's her name? I can't remember her name. The music, your favorite music.
Alison Krauss?
Yes, she wants you.
Okay.
She said it'd be fun for having Josh do something on
Okay.
Alison Krauss.
I'll do that next week.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Okay.
So that was her. That's all we talked about whenever we went out to lunch. Josh.
All right. Makes sense.
Now, what's Josh doing? Does Josh want to come out and eat for lunch? What's he doing? What's he doing tomorrow? It's not true. Okay. Donna, I love you. We'll see y'all next week for episode 95. Thanks, everybody. Bye.